today, I want to just look at just one chapter that will encourage us, that will also be able to open our hearts, to how we study, the Bible. But before I do that, I just want to give us the opportunity to ask if there's any question from whatever that was shared on Sunday, any clarification that you need. I would really, 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 really appreciate if we can ask questions now. That is what our midweek service is. During a sermon on Sunday, you are not able to ask questions, so we make the midweek service a time practically of teaching. All right, so I'm going to be looking out for hands as they go up, and Mr. Adesonya, if you see any hand go up, please let me know if you want to react and or respond. Also going to have one eye on the chat to make sure that those who are not able to speak where they are, maybe you're in a bus or you're in a public place, and you'll be able to type out your question. So I really, really will appreciate us taking advantage of asking the question. Somebody recently said that we need to take advantage of the opportunity to ask questions during midweek service. Very, very important. All right, very, very important. I'm still waiting for those hands to go up. All right. Okay, while I'm waiting, and even as we go on, I want you to start scribbling things down. Anything that is said, what is said, something you need clarifications on, please write them down. And some new information I'll be sharing, I really encourage us to do the same thing also. Let's turn our Bibles to the book of Acts, chapter 14. Acts of the Apostles, chapter 14. This one chapter tells the story of the circumnavigation of Paul and Barnabas. So I just picked on that one chapter for us to look at today. This is the 14th chapter of the book of Acts. And it records, if you ask me, it records one of the most, and you're going to see what I mean. It records what is the most almost volatile. Even as we preach the gospel, we're going to go through a lot of volatility. So it records this volatile situation. It's also some geographically challenging situation. Then, he also exposed some culturally complex, phases of what the Christian movement, early church movement was all about. When we think about the early church movement, we just think, they just went and they were preaching. Everybody was agreeing with them. That is far from the truth. It's not that. It was difficult. It was intense. Some places they will go to preach, they will throw them out. They will kick them out. They will chase them away. They will stone them. It was that difficult. So what we have today didn't come to us. Excuse me. My seat seems to be going backwards. So the advantage of what we have, today didn't come just like that. It was through tears. It was through a lot of going. And that's why, Paul was talking about, he's been beaten. He's been stranded. He said, I bear on me the marks of Christ. He was rejected, both at home, both abroad. He was lost on the high sea, on the sea. So many things happened to them. And this will help us to begin to appreciate what we have, today. So going back to Acts 14. So in this chapter, if you read it well, you'll see how he makes this transition of this mission, from familiar Hellenistic, synagogue. When they were in Antioch, that was when they were sent forth, and they went to places that Barnabas knew. Of course, they went to his village, his hometown in Cyprus. And by the way, for those of you who were there on Sunday, and those of you who have listened to this thing, something went wrong on Sunday. For some reason, towards the end, I keep mentioning Tarsus when I was meant to say Cyprus. I keep mentioning Tarsus. I don't know. For some reason, towards the end, every time I was meant to say Cyprus, I was mentioning Tarsus. On Zoom, on YouTube. I actually went to type it there just to apologize to anybody that have to read. So if you also were there, and towards the end when I was mentioning experiences that happened I meant Cyprus, not Tarsus. Tarsus was where Paul was from. All right. Okay. So, this thing moves away from, how you are in a place where people know you, where people are more receptive, where people are not very radical. It is easier. So for the first time, Paul and Barnabas now moved away from where people were more receptive to now a hostile place. So after they left Antioch, it was one hostility. In fact, there's barely no city that they went that they didn't face hostility. And of course, that's, some of what we're told that even in this life, we're going to face through so much. And so it makes sense when Paul enters a place, the first place he will go to is the Jewish synagogue, because he will think, well, let me go and talk to my people that don't have to do too much explaining. Unfortunately, those were the people that were most hostile, towards him. So he left this known area and he entered this another area. So we're going to be going into a little bit of history, more of culture, to see actually how this mission teams went. It started in Iconium, very iconic. Okay, it started in Iconium. I want you, when you're reading your Bible, I want you to start do what I do. Apply some of those words. Look them up where they are on the map. You'll see that they left the northeast, they went Mediterranean south into Cyprus, and now they are going towards the northwest. So they now got to Iconium, which is from verse 1 to 7, and from 8 to 18 they were in another place, Lystra. They were in the Lystra. Then from 19 to 20, they were beginning to see so many things and on and on. So I'm going to go ahead and read some of those verses at this time. Let us start from verse 1, and we're going to learn what happened in 3 cities before they now went back, or rather 2 places before they went back. The Bible said in verse 1, say, in Iconium, Paul and Barnabas. Okay, and I want you to notice the way they write their names. And you might say, does that make any sense? You're going to see it's usually Paul and Barnabas. Paul and Barnabas. Okay, so Paul and Barnabas went as usual into the Jewish synagogue. There, they spoke so effectively. This is one of the things I used to teach the School of Mission on effective communication. Okay, not just talk. The Bible said they spoke so effectively that a great number of Jews and Greeks believed. Effective communication. They didn't just talk, they were very effective. So for us also, we need to make sure that our communication is effective. It has effects. Okay, we are answering questions the right way. We are saying things the right way. We know what we're talking about. We're doing our research in the Bible. Now, why that was good news, immediately after that in verse 2, the Bible said, but the Jews who refused to believe. The Bible said that a great number of Jews and Greeks believed. So these people believe. So the people who didn't believe, you would think they would just leave them alone. So that is where opposition will come from. It said, but the Jews who refused to believe stirred up the other Gentiles. And there's a word that is used here. And they poisoned their minds against the brothers. Who are the brothers? Paul, Barnabas, and the other guys. So look at the kind of opposition. It is not enough for people to say, well, I don't believe what you are saying, and I'm going to stay away from you. I don't believe you. But they went ahead. This is now the pure definition of opposition. And from opposition, it now leads to persecution. So there are 2 different things. Somebody can oppose you to say, I don't want. Then from opposition, it now moved down to persecution. And the Bible said that these guys who refused to believe now went around doing counter-evangelism. They were doing counter-evangelism, and what they were doing, that they began to stir up the other Gentiles, and they poisoned their minds against the brothers. Now, this is like Mission Impossible. So again, listen, Paul and Barnabas. So Paul and Barnabas spent considerable time there because they wanted to convince all these people. And we don't know how long they spent there, but they spent considerable time there speaking boldly for the Lord, who confirmed the message of his grace by enabling them to perform signs and wonders. So you see, the Bible didn't say that Paul began to perform signs and wonders, but God enabled them. So it was an enablement, just like the Bible, Jesus Christ said. He said, these signs will accompany those who believe. So he said that their primary work was not to, let's just do miracle, but God just allowed them to start doing miracle. Those miracles, we all know, they are to confirm that they are from God, to confirm the spoken word that comes from their mouth. And that is one of the major functions of miracles in the Bible. If you look at all the miracles, even when Jesus Christ, where he was on earth, he said, if you don't believe what I'm saying, believe the miracles that I'm doing. It confirms that I am indeed the Christ. So the people of the city were divided. Some sided with the Jews and others with the apostles. What kind of environment do you think this is going to be? I mean, from this time on, it was one. I mean, we looked at a very small position. When they were in Cyprus, it was only one man who opposed them. That was Elymas. And Paul just said, you will not be able to see for a time, and he went blind. Right now, from one man opposing them, they now have like a city now coming against them. But the Bible says, verse 5 said, there was a plot afoot among the Gentiles and Jews, together with their leaders, to mistreat them and to stone them. So number one is to say, I don't accept what you're saying. Number two is to go and now gather supporters to now poison them. Of course, to poison means to put negative things. So they began to lie. These are also religious people. They began to lie, to say things, the same thing they did with Jesus, to poison them against this guy. And they now began to plot amongst them. And those days, whenever they, of course, one of the biggest accusation they can give you is blasphemy. Now, if it's in a very religious society, like Jewish community, they will accuse you that you have said something bad against God, blasphemy. If it's in a Greek society, they will say you are speaking against Caesar. So those are the things they use. Look at it. It's the same today, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. I mean, people will be kidnapped, people will be robbed, people will be killed. You don't see a mass protest anywhere. Just last week, you see thousands of people running, saying Allahu Akbar, running, because of somebody insulted their prophet. You could see that it's the same mindlessness. It's still the same thing that we have today. What will you do if you are in that situation? That would say, but they found out about it. Of course, now they were not just two people. Remember, at this time, they were just two, of them. Young Mark had gone. All right, John Mark had gone. There were just two of them. So they now found out what they planned. Then they now fled to Iconium city of Lystra and Derbe. Because like Jesus Christ, their time has not yet come. So there's a time to wait. There's time to run. So when they found that they're going to kill them, they're going to kill them. So they ran. So they fled, to the Iconium city of Lystra and Derbe, and to the surrounding country where they continue to preach the gospel. Just continue. Jesus Christ said, if they reject you in this city, dust yourself, dust your coat, and go to another place. They are not worthy. But let us now go to this twin city that they went to, Lystra and Derbe. Now, this is where it gets even dramatic. Now, I know that the buzz around the movie world, actually Hollywood, is Odyssey. All right, Odysseus, the story of Odyssey, the scripting, the liberty that the producer have taken to make even, I don't want to go to that, but it's just very, very controversial at this time. But anyway, so this happened around that Greek area. So in Lystra, there sat a man who was lame. He had been that way from birth and had never walked. Now we are going to witness what miracle are all about. Not all these side shows that people do today. This guy was lame. I would say he had never walked from birth, and he has been that way. So this man listened to Paul as he was speaking. Remember, Paul's job was not to go and perform a miracle. Miracle was just an aftermath. God might allow them work. But this man sat down listening as Paul was speaking. Then Paul looked directly at him. Now, what does it remind you? It reminds you about that miracle that happened in the temple with Peter and John. When the guy was like, silver and gold have I not? They look at me. He was like, Peter said, look at me, look at us. Do we look like we have money? But silver and gold we don't have, but what we have to give you. So Paul looked directly at him, saw that he had faith to be healed. And he called out. Now, think about it. People have not seen healing before. People do not immediately equate the message of the gospel with healing. It was just a message. Unlike what people do today, people put out miracles first. Put out miracle first. Of course, most time they are not real miracles. They put out miracle first to gather crowd to come. Rather, in this way, it was so when you don't know that something might be attached to something, you don't ask for it. So you don't see anybody asking for miracle. It was when people knew that Jesus had miracle, wherever you go, it was the miracle they went to see. So these guys were in a new town. All they were doing is preaching. So nobody knew if they could work miracle, nobody knew anything. It was just the message, and this guy was just paying attention. And that was when Paul looked directly at him, and he saw that this guy had faith to be healed. Now, that is an interesting discourse. Bible said this man, he knows that he has faith to be healed. He desired to be healed. This guy has desire to be healed. So healing is not just what the healer can do, but he also works with what the person desires, what you desire. So he called out, of course, it was in the crowd, stand up on your feet. I want you to imagine the commotion that people will have. Well, like, who's talking to? And people just were like, who is standing, who is sitting? Because they are all sitting down. Preachers don't usually stand up, they sit down to preach in those days. Like, stand up, or like, who are you talking to? Is it me? It can't be that guy. He says, stand up on your feet. At that time, the man jumped up and he began to walk. This is miracle. You can verify this one. Everybody knew that man. It's not like the story of that woman that you see in somewhere in Lagos. Then you see her, the same woman, you see her in Enugu. Same woman, they were beginning to hire that woman because that woman has, this woman, of course, you guys must have seen it. This woman has an interesting condition where she can actually tuck in her arm. Like, I know I talk something, she can tuck in her arm. And so preachers began to hire her to perform miracle. And they will do all their side show and everything. They'll say, oh, the hand is now coming out. Reminds me of a story of a tout that we used to know in the 70s. It's called Alimi Yopa Yopa. Alimi. The guys will just come up and go back. So when this happened, when the crowd saw what Paul had done, they shouted in the Iconium language. What did they say? The gods have come down to us in human form. Now, this is ancient story. In that place, there was a legend that the gods came to come and destroy, and they are going to come back again. And those gods were the chief god and Hermes. That is Zeus and Hermes. And all of a sudden, Barnabas, they call Zeus, and Paul, they call Hermes, because he was the chief spokesperson, person. Because it was when I was speaking more. So it was from this time, here, they now began to switch. You now be, rather than saying Paul and Barnabas, you now begin to see Barnabas and Paul. So the priest of Zeus, think about it. This man just worked a miracle. The priest of Zeus, whose temple was just outside the city where they were, he brought bulls and wreath to the city gate because he and the crowd wanted to offer sacrifices to them. Who said offer sacrifices? So you can see now, you're going to see this story, how somebody can move in 1 minute, you are a god. In the second minute, you are a criminal. And that is how human beings are. They went to go and bring the of course, what they do is that the priest want to claim, oh, I'm the priest, I'm your priest. So he brought bulls, let us sacrifice to them. But when the apostles, Barnabas and Paul, no more Paul and Barnabas and Paul heard this, they tore their clothes and they rushed out into the crowd, shouting, friends, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? We're like, we too are only humans like you. Now, think about another story that happened in the book of Acts chapter 10. Can you imagine, when you go to a very important event, anybody can introduce somebody. But if you go to the higher you go in events, the person that is selected to come and introduce you has to be special. They cannot call just anyhow person to come and introduce you. That person has to be a special person. There was a course I took some time ago at CMD on communication. And one of the things they taught us is on how to introduce from the president. They'll go from president, the vice, for the vice president, now go to the speaker, to the president of the Senate, they now go to the chief justice, and on and on and on. So can you imagine if an angel is the one who is introducing you? Now, for you to have an angel to introduce you means that you must be very important. So that was how Colenus was thinking. Who is this man that God has to send an angel to introduce him, to go and talk to him about it? He was very important. So that was why when Peter entered his house in Acts 10, the guy fell down on his knees. Cornelius fell down on his knees. Peter said, no, get up. I'm just a man myself. So I want you to notice what was going on here. Just like Jesus. You see, when Jesus Christ came and he was playing with children in the marketplace, he was sitting on the floor with them, he was writing on the floor. The apostles didn't like it. They didn't like it at all. They were like, do you know who you are? Do you know you're very important? See, that is how people elevate people to a position where they're not supposed to be. Psychophancy. And that is how followers will begin to hide things from the leaders. Like I tell people, leaders are probably the most ignorant people anywhere, including in our church. People think, oh, leader, you guys must know what's happening. We don't know jack. You guys are the one that know that information, but you don't tell us what's going on. If you ask the president right now, you tell you that, oh, Nigeria is okay, everything's okay, there is food, everybody's enjoying, because that is what they're telling him. Because when you lift yourself up like that, people are going to give you honor. They're going to put you on a pedestal. You're going to say, man, this guy belongs to this. Everybody will begin to honor you. But when you bring yourself down to become like anybody else, then you can be betrayed easily. So the question is, which one will you prefer? Will you prefer where you place yourself where you're not supposed to be, so that people can have a certain, thinking about you, impression about you, or will you be open? Today, myself and some of my friends who are life coaches, so we're talking about, we're chatting up in our group, and we just had an event in Rwanda over the weekend. I'm part of the organizing committee. I didn't go, but I was here, also helping out. And they say, oh, they want to do is a book study for 48 days. And when they mentioned that book, I cringed. Someone mentioned, oh, they want to study the 48 laws of power. And I was like, and I put up there and said, none of them have read that book. None of them I was talking to have read that book. I was like, do you know what that book says? And if you ask me, no disciple should even read that book. Now, if you read that book, like I normally tell my students, there are certain books I read so that they don't have to go and read those books. If you are not a disciple to the heart and you read that book, it will pollute your mind, because it is based on the standard of the world, not on Jesus' sermon on the mount. It's all about how to use trickery, how to use lies, how to use deceit, how to use cunningness to get to where you want to get to, how to deceive, how to tell some people one thing and do another thing. The 48 laws of power. And I pray that no disciple we live under such illusion because God brings anybody down. So you see, we live in a situation where people want to carve out an image for themselves that people will think they are who they are not. But you see, but the irony is that when you bring yourself down, you become also vulnerable to attack. Jesus Christ was betrayed. They knew where they normally go to chill out in the evening. They knew there was nothing about it they didn't know, so they could plan against him. So sometimes because of to protect ourselves, people actually go and sin. And my question is, shall we continue in sin that grace might increase? I would say, God forbid. So Jesus humbled himself. The apostles were like, no, you can't be doing this. He said, let the children come to me. Even his brothers that he had, the sons of Mary, came to him and said, okay, so you want to do this ministry, Abby? Okay, but this is not how they do it. You should go to important places. You see, they're all thinking about money, position, influence. Peter also, if you allow Cornelius to bow down, Cornelius would have been worshiping him. Or Cornelius would have thought he's a more special person. But Peter said, I'm just a man like you. I will now look at the life of Barnabas and Paul. These guys have brought things to sacrifice to them. If you were the one, what will you say? People are having the impression that you are more important than you think you are. He said, friends, why are you doing this? They said, we too are only human. They brought themselves down. We are only human like you, nothing special really. He said, we are bringing you good news, telling you to turn from these worthless things to the living God who made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything in them. Guess what they are saying? Our God is bigger than Zeus and Hermes. Because according to them, their God will come and destroy them with water and everything. He said, the God, the living God, who made the heavens and the earth, the sea and everything. So they roped in their belief in it. Think about also Jonah. Jonah could have lied to escape. But they asked him, who are you? Where are you from? Where are you going? What do you do? He now said, I'm the God of heaven. So because they were worshiping the sea, he said, I'm the God who made the sea. And these guys were not, disciples. So what do they do? He said, throw me, because that's what they'll do. I've been to, when we say at the Bar Beach, I've been Bar Beach where I used to belong to religious groups where we'll go and sacrifice. So one time we went to go and sacrifice. This is where we go and sacrifice a goat or a ram. They'll throw the ram into the Bible. The ram will find its way back. They will throw the ram. So I don't even know what happened eventually. Just to appease the. So when people get to where they don't understand, they say what you don't understand, you fear. And what you fear, you try to kill. That is what we do today. But in those days, what you don't understand, you fear. And what you fear, you worship. Think about it. It's raining now. Did you know what people would have thought 50, 60 years ago, 100 years ago? I don't know if you guys remember. I think it was in the 80s. Who sang that song? I think it was Sonny Ade. There are several rivers. There was this deluge that happened, this something. And it was not the Ogun River. It was the Ogunpa. How many of you know Ogunpa River? Ogunpa. Ojo Abami to run Ibadan. Ojo Kekere kan. Ogunpa. So people were worshiping. So if it's a sin we committed, though, because that's what they do think. Now they will not think it's somebody that is covering the embankments. Covering the like let go where the water is supposed to go. When water overflows, you need to go to a place. It's just like in your car, when the water in the radiator gets hot, it goes to a collecting chamber. So for us also, the ocean is fed by rivers. Rivers are fed by streams. Streams are fed by tributaries, other tributaries, and they all go down. So with the volume of water, God has made some chambers where they will gather. They are called lagoons. But the more we cover those lagoons, when water comes, there is nowhere to go. So water will not go to land. It is not the gods. It is us. That is doing that. So today, how do you present yourself? How do you carry yourself? Do you carry yourself as A human being, fallible human being, or do you deliberately put an aura around you that that's not true? They said we are just like human beings, like us. Then Paul now says something that close to what he said, in chapter 17, when he was in Athens. He said, in the past, he let all nations go their own way. In Acts 17, he said, in the past, God allowed such ignorance. In the past, he allowed all nations to go their own way. Yet, he had not left himself without testimony. He has shown kindness by giving you rain from heaven, crops in their season. He provides you with plenty of food and fills your hearts with joy. In theology, we'll say that God speaks through so many things. God speaks through many things. God can speak to you in dream. God can use a human being to come and talk to you. God can even use a donkey to come and talk to you. God can use everything. So we say there are two books that we have to study. One book is the book of God's word, the word of God, the book of God's word. And that word is the Bible. The Bible, the book of God's word. The second book, and you might say, okay, well, only Christians read the Bible. The second book is, you don't have to be a Christian, is the book of God's works. What does the book of Psalms says? The heavens declare the goodness of God. The skies, day after day, they pour forth speech. Their voices go to everywhere. So even if you say there's no God, look up, look down. Who made the trees? Remember Jimmy Cliff? That song in the 70s, I Want to Know. Everybody wants to know. Who made the song? Who made the cliff? Who made the, who made them? So you have to convince me that if everything has a maker, my remote control here has a maker. So if something as simple as this can have a maker, how much more something as complex as a human being? My car has a maker. My headphone has a maker. Everything has a maker. There is nothing that just happened by itself. In those days, when we are small, we'll go and be claiming that, this plant is my own. Oh, this tree is my own. I will say, Ola Lewuni. That means it just grew up. But somebody made it grow. Somebody is responsible. The law of entropy states that anything you leave unattended, we decompose, we degenerate with time. If I leave this flash drive, after a while, the plastic there will degenerate. It might take 100 years, but it will degenerate. If you build your house and leave your house, you lock it up, with time, it will degenerate. Everything, your clothes will degenerate. That is the law of entropy. But when you have something opposing that law of entropy, that means it cannot be that thing again. That means there's something that is causing it to go. That is why the laws of science are very, very important. The laws of motion. It says that an object, the third law of motion, that an object will remain in the state that it is unless something external acts on it. Things don't just move. It might be wind energy, it might be earthquake, something external. It can't be something from within itself. It has to be something external. So that's why we talk to scientists. Even the Big Bang was caused by somebody. It can't just happen. So these guys began to say, listen, God allowed. There's a time that we're ignorant, but yet he has not left us without testimony. He allowed able to do what they want to do, and that is the whole Bible said that God has put the eternity in our hearts. We want to live long. We want to know where did the moon come from? Where did the sun come from? So man's is their own desire or man's quest to find divinity is what leads to religion. So religion is simply man's way of going to divine, of connecting with the divine. Just like I explained to you guys on Sunday using Genesis. Oh, let us build this, they call it ziggurat actually, ziggurat. Let's build this monumental something so that the gods can come down. You will see them in South America, even in Enugu. So some of the, you guys might not know, some of the oldest pyramids in Africa. It's not really Egyptian pyramids. So Egypt is very old, but they are also found here in Nigeria, in Enugu. See, today they still have them. Unfortunately, they were built with mud, and so they decompose very easily. So if you go to Enugu, I saw one in Franco Honora's village, in the village square. There's this step, they call it step pyramid they have. So that's what everybody built in those days. It was a symbol to the gods. A symbol, the gods will come down, to us. So God overlooks such ignorance, but he commands everybody today. If you don't, there is God, then look around. Nobody could have made anything that is around. The Bible said that even with these words, as much as Paul tried to convince them, even with this word, they had difficulty keeping the crowd from sacrificing to them. They sure want to sacrifice. Sometimes people become so accustomed to idols that they just think everything will come. There's something behind it. There's a spirit behind this stone. So they worship the stone. In India, people worship ant hill. Not just dogs and goats and or cow, whatever, and every single thing. They worship. They say, oh, there's a spirit in them. So even with these words, they had difficulty keeping the crowd from sacrifice to them. There's some of the Jews. Remember, when they were come, they came from Antioch. They now went to Cyprus. From Cyprus, they now went over there. But some Jews from Antioch, where they were from, some Jews from Antioch and Iconium. So those two places that they've been, Antioch and Iconium, and they came, from Antioch, and they now won the crowd over. They now were able to convince the crowd that these people are fraud. What they do, they stoned Paul and dragged him outside the city, thinking he was dead. They almost killed him. He was the spokesperson. He was the intense one. They almost killed him. So can you imagine? This is some of the things that the gospel will require. Even as we live our lives, we're going to face opposition. The highest that we'll face really is opposition. But when you see persecution, you will know. And sometimes people believe, historically, persecution is almost like the fertilizer that makes the church strong. When persecution comes, that's when we know who is who. That's when we're able to divide the men from the boys. And what we have will be a stronger church. I pray that may God not bring all that kind of persecution that's going to sift your hearts. But sift your own hearts, now. So they now took Paul, they stoned him, and he fainted. He fainted. And they dragged him outside the city. They thought he was dead. So because they have to put anything that is dead outside, so they dragged him outside the city. But after disciples had gathered around him, much later, he got up and went back into the city. That's crazy. Went back into the city. The next day, he and Barnabas left Derbe. When I read that part of when they gather around him, it reminds me of what we normally do when we are very young in the early 70s. Whenever we mistakenly throw a stone one time and it hits a chicken, and the chicken odaku, it faints. What we're taught to do is to take pangolo, we cover it and get to eat it. Go. That is sound therapy. When you remove it, the chicken will rise up and walk. So when I read passage like this, I think about that. When they gathered around Paul, maybe they prayed, maybe they did something, but Paul got up, went back into the city. Of course, the disciples took him maybe to go and dress his wound, because this guy was battered. That was why after a while, he had bad eyesight. He couldn't see very well. That was why, later in his life, when it was before the Sanhedrin and in Jerusalem and whatever, and they were like, can't you know I'm the high priest? He said, I didn't know you're a high priest. He couldn't see very well. When they told you to slap him. And he said, may God strike you also. He said, you are talking to the high priest that way. He said, I didn't know you're the high priest. Say, yeah, keep quiet. You knew I'm the high priest. You've always known I'm the high priest. Are you like, Paul is not like, Paul was not seeing very well. And again, when he wrote, he began to write big letters. And he wrote, I said, this is how I write, big alphabets. And people believed that he had very bad eye problem. And people felt that maybe that's one of the thorn in the flesh, that he prayed to God. This is a guy who was working miracle, but he prayed for miracles for his own life. God said, no, my grace is sufficient enough for him. We don't know exactly what that thing was. So he now left there, and he now left Derbe, and he now went to back to Antioch, in Syria. So he had made that circumnavigation and went back. So they preached the gospel in that city and won large number of disciples. Then they returned to Lystra. That was where they were coming from. They returned to Lystra, which we keeping count. They returned to Lystra, Iconium, and Antioch. What were they doing? Strengthening the disciples and encouraging them to remain true to the faith. And what did he tell them? Based on the experience, they said, we must go through many hardships to enter the kingdom of God. They said. Paul and Barnabas appointed elders. I'm going to talk a bit about that one too. Appointed elders for them in each church, and with prayer and fasting, committed them to the Lord in whom they had put their trust. Think about it. When Paul and Barnabas were living Antioch, all the people came together with prayer and fasting. They committed them into that mission. And Paul and Barnabas there were now appointing elders, for them in each church. And sometimes, like what he told them, Titus. He said the reason why I left you in Crete was that you finish what I started and appoint elders in those places. Now, this is a question I think you should be asking right now. Why is it that it looks like elders were appointed almost immediately, sometimes within a short few years of the church, or within a short few months? We don't know. But how come we are not appointing elders? How come we have churches today? We have church in Abeokuta, be there forever. We have church in Ibadan. We have church in Ilorin. We have church. I don't have elders. Abuja don't have an elder. Whatever. So I'm going to open it up at this time. Let us talk. What do you guys say? Why do you think that they were appointing elders so quickly, and it was easier for them, at least from what we are reading, than us? Today we have some of our churches in the movement that are 40 years. They've grown. They have tons of people, thousands, yet they don't have any elder. Let us to what do you guys think? That's the question you should be asking me, but I'm the one asking now. Okay. Your hand is up. Let's hear from you.
Yes, it's Indu. Thank you, Emmanuel, for the teaching. I've been asking that question for a long time, and I don't know the answer while we are doing that. My personal speculation is that we don't trust God. That's why. If we trusted God, we would do it the way they did it, because we claim that we follow the Bible, and we've done really well, God helping us with following the Bible in terms of salvation, how to get salvation, hearing, repenting, getting baptized, and growing. But we need to trust God in other areas, that He can work with people who are not necessarily very young converts, who can help shepherd the churches everywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a brilliant answer. Thank you. Do you have, okay, you have for Wowe. You have the mic for Wowe.
Okay, good evening, everybody. For me, my belief is, I think the evangelists, as maybe, don't just want to move on. I think that's personal feeling. I think the evangelist doesn't just want to move on, because, like you said, that the way in the Bible is that the elders take care of the church. That's the way it's designed. So a lot of time I've pondered about it, and that's to my conclusion, that the evangelist doesn't just want to move on. Their job is to be planting church, not to stay there like what we have today, lead evangelist, super lead evangelist. No, that they are supposed to be moving around planting churches, and elders are supposed to be the bishop. For me, I think
very exciting.
Hello?
Very excited. I'm enjoying what I'm hearing.
So that's what I personally think that's personally what I think. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Who else again want to share? Let's share. Hey, I mean, you guys are thinking about this stuff. Just share what's in your mind. There's no wrong or right answer. Yeah, Undu, your hand is up again, right?
Yes. fear. There is fear that I think there is fear and insecurity. That's where I leave it for now. Thank you.
Fear and insecurity. What about the rest of us? You guys never thought about this? Now, there's no right answer to this. Now, if we say
let me say something. And
Wasu is back. Okay, welcome. Okay, put up your hand first.
Yes.
I will spotlight you since your video is on.
You don't have to. Okay, well, great to be back anyway.
So everybody can see you.
I think that, yes, I think the issue is that, one, I think the evangelists that we have even play the role of the elder in most cases. For us, like we didn't move quickly to eldership because even the evangelists were playing the role of elder, shepherding the church, planting church, or shepherding church. We do almost everything, the whole work, and so that's one side to it. The second thing is that I think the eldership that we read in the days of Paul is not the same to me now. I don't think it's the same in terms of, they should be the one like shepherding the church and making sure that the church remains strong. But our own understanding is different. If what you have as eldership today and what's supposed to be, even though we try as much as well to find scriptures to back it up, I think we shifted from the role of those elders and their responsibility to more of administrative responsibilities and doing more work of office work, and rather than being shepherds that we have today. So that to me, that's why.
Right. Thank you very much. This is getting very, very interesting. Now, let's look at the facts first. First, look at the fact. The fact is that these guys were planting churches and they were appointing elders. Now, some of them were maybe within a month or two, or I don't think a month or two, maybe a year, let's say a year or 2 or 3. Some of them maybe a few years, but not like 40 years like ours. But if I continue, let's have a Madiako family. Is that Philomena or John Ken?
Yeah, good evening. Can you hear me? This is John Kenneth.
Okay, good evening.
Yeah, from my own understanding and the way I have seen our own eldership in church, I think we are really modeling it in our own way. Because you see elder for the poor, you see elder for business ministry. So I think if we are to be apostolic in nature, what the Bible says, our eldership should be of growing the church, just like you mentioned, church in Aba, church in Owerri, church in Abeokuta, to mention but a few. There are capable hands, brothers and sisters, in that congregation. And if you also the distribution of our eldership is only in Lagos, what happens to other churches as well? So I think it's something that calls for a big think. So we have to realign. It's not for position, it is for service. That's the way I see it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's hear Mr. Nolefo, the law. Over to you.
Well, I hope I'll be heard properly because I'm in a car. But notwithstanding, at the Bible time, during those apostolic era, the Bible is all the way codified. The Word of God is not as codified as it is. Now, the position of elders is clearly defined. Who qualifies and who can occupy the position. So, at that time, I'm not sure they had that. Because I'm not sure they had that kind of qualification, codification of the Bible in a form that you say, okay, Like you want to enter JAM, you say you have to have 5 credits in mathematics and English and all. That's how the eldership is today. To qualify neither, you must meet that basic criteria. If you don't. So if you look around, the church has existed for 40 years, for decades, and then when you use that standard, you discover that nobody, no member of the congregation qualifies for that. So what do? You move on. Because that's the standard. Then they may not be that standard because the Bible was not in the form we have it today. So that's just what I think. Why in some cases today, in some churches, we don't have elders. Because the elder must be able to meet that criteria as clearly stated in the Bible. Thank you.
Interestingly, thank you so much. Not just in some churches, in most, I'm talking about like 80% at least of our churches don't have elders, if not more. So my question is, how come we all agree on this? And yet, it is not the way it is. That brings me to the question of culture. You know what they say that they say that culture is strategy for breakfast. You know how we all know that it is wrong to do this, but yet people are still doing it. So let us back up a little bit. The foundation that the church had was a Jewish foundation. Okay, if you come from the Old Testament, Moses was like a major person there. But after a while, God now told Moses to invite some other people to come so that he may put the Spirit in them so that they can help Moses to lead. If you read your Bible, you'll find that situation there. To lead. You recognize other leaders. As even before we got to the point where Jethro came to tell him, train people, do this. Oh no, they were elders. Those elders, the word is Bedab. And in the African tradition, we understand that better than any other person. In Middle East African tradition. Because if you come to the village, like the Igbo village, Yoruba village, even the one, you see that every village, every village has a made up of human beings. And those human beings are found in families. And those families are extended family. So the oldest, the patriarch of that family, the patriarch, like in my own family, is Chief J.D. Emeh. He is the chief, he is the leader of that clan or clan. So he's the elder. So elder has to do with somebody who is more mature, who is older, who is, now the second word, who is overseeing his family. So, and that's why you're going to find maybe 4 to 5 words that was used in the Bible. The word that you decide to use will determine what you mean. Like we say in theology, your terminology will reinforce your theology. The term that you use will now redetermine your terminology. For example, we use the word elder. When you hear the word elder, what comes to your mind? An older person. Basically, that's what that word. Now, that is only the state of the person. It doesn't tell you the function. So if we keep using the word elder, it only begins to become a position. You are the older person in position. But another word that talks about what elders do is a word that we should be using more. And that word is shepherd. Olusoaguntan. A shepherd. Elders are shepherds. Not just that they are shepherd. When you talk about shepherd, you somebody who is, there's a book most of you have read, I believe. They smell like sheep. Shepherds smell like sheep. You know why? Because they are around the sheep. It is about sheep. It's about nurturing. It's about taking care of. That is what they do. So the word shepherd and the word elder, the same office, but we choose without. I don't think we start out to say we're going to choose, we won't choose that one. No, but just naturally. And if you bring that concept to an African society where respect is everything, I'm older than you, that is what's going to happen to us. Where the focus more now is, oh, this person is older. Now, in the Jewish community, of course, it was very basic. You have to be a family man. You must be able to take care of your own family because that is what you are doing. Now, when you have among shepherds, you can have a chief shepherd who every now and then he goes to the high post, to the hill. He stays at the hill and is watching over. He can see far. He is overseeing. That's what an oversees. So that is what elders do. Now, as time began to go on, when that word left the Jewish community and it began to go to Gentile community, of course, they began to use words like transliteration. After a while, you now begin to see an elder who is supposed to be in a family. Church is actually a family. Church is the Bible where people that meet in homes in a small location. They are not 10,000 people or 100,000 or people that are spread throughout the whole place. No, they were, and they have, Bible says, appoint elders in each church. They were elders in their local community. After a while, when the Roman Catholic Church began to come, we now begin to say, well, oh, this elder is now overseeing another branch. And that's where the word bishop now comes in. Thank you. Somebody just, I read the chat. Another word is pastor. Pastor. From pasture. A pasture, So a shepherd is within the pasture. So that's what they call them, pastors. They pastor the congregation. So, but you will not find one elder that is overseeing another elder, another. Those things were things that came much more. We now began to now find bishops. Now began to find archbishop. Now began to find all those things. Now, two different things. You can actually play a role without having an office. And I'm saying that because somebody said here that a lot of evangelists actually have been playing that role. They plant churches, they nurture people, they get together with people, whatever. Just like a single sister can play the role of a mother to a teenager, without having to be a mother herself. Or a single brother can play the role of a father. Older people are to act like fathers. Older people, that's what we want to nurture. You can play that role. But right now, what do we want? Do we want people who can play the role or people who only occupy the office? And when you occupy the office, it's not a bad thing. If care is not taken, you can become occupied till I come. So after a while, the focus might be rather recognizing, not appointing. Now you can use the word appoint, but I like the word recognize. Recognizing men who are already playing that role. We now make laws that will make it difficult for other people. Now, those laws differ from town to town. Okay, there was no universal law that said this is what they must have. Based on the town, for example, in Crete is like, I don't want to mention them, it's like a rough place. Paul said, even their own preachers say Cretes are brutes, they are liars, they are drunk. Paul said, and it is true. So anybody that must be an elder must not be a drunk. Because it's like that's a natural thing. You go to the Gentile place where officially a Gentile, a Greek guy will have his wife, the official wife. It is from that wife that his heir will come. But the law also allows them to have side chicks by law. You can have side chicks. You can have girlfriend. And your wife, everybody knows. Everybody knows. In the law, they call them alanu. They will ask you, talala no. You have your husband, you say a woman, say, Allah no me. Sugar daddy. In the culture. So for that place, Paul told Timothy, nobody who has another woman should be an elder. The Bible said an elder must be a one-woman man. That's how it's written in Greek. One-woman man. I know sometimes we call it a husband of one wife. No, one woman. It will only be one woman. It must not be a man that has side chicks because it's a bad example to people in the church. So if we are in Lagos today, what do you think will be our basic standard for an elder? Our basic standard for an elder. Apart from being, the Bible says, don't appoint somebody that is too young. Even in the faith, it might be an older person, but if it's young in faith, it's not grounded yet. But with somebody. So what they did was that they just morphed the elders of the Jewish community. When they become disciples, and those guys are strong in faith, automatically they just become the elders of the church. That was why it was easier. Because they already have an elder system, a system of those men taking care of their, like my grandfather, for example, was in charge of, he had 4 wives and many children. So it was easier. So today we have to find out, how do we do that? I think the structure we put together is making it almost impossible. Now, apart from the fact that you have to desire to be an elder, I don't desire to be an elder. I love being a teacher. I want to be able to move around. Elders are more localized. They are more stationary. And I don't want to be stationary. Okay? And they say, oh, they must have believing children. Now we're beginning to say, okay, must they be children believing when they were small? What if they grow up and fall away? Well, now it's catching up on us now. We're now beginning to now change our own goal. But that's another day, another sermon. We'll talk about that. And I think maybe one of these days we need to have like a series where we'll talk about biblical leadership in our church. Now, there's something wrong in you innovating some leadership roles, like Bible talk leader, family group leader, whatever, all this stuff. But when we talk about roles that meet needs, today, if you are no longer leading a Bible talk, why would you want to call yourself a Bible talk leader? So the same thing will happen. Today, people become senators, and they're senators for life. Our president, before he became president, he used to be known as Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Even when he was a governor, because it's like senator for life. We can't be like that. Okay, we can't be people who call ourselves honorable and do dishonorable things. We have to make sure that we first live the life. Then, as you're living the life, people will see you and people will recognize you. Man, this guy is truly living like an elder to us. And I'm sure around our churches, there are people who are already in that role, but they may never be recognized. And God forbid, a time will come where all our leaders are retirees. They can't be no retirees. We need elders to go and pray over the sick. We need elders to go and look for the people that have marital issues, people that are having divorce cases. We can't have elders who are administrative elders, who attend meetings only. Those meetings are great and every single thing, but it is in shepherding the people. Shepherding the people. Take care of people. Elders should be able to take care. And I think our elders are overburdened. Now, and I told one of them, I said, biblically, you are just an elder for if you say your region, that's even too big. Your region, your zone, in the Bible, you're just an elder. But do not say you're not overseeing another region that they might never see in 1 year. One man cannot do that. One man cannot do that. So we need more people amongst you to begin to desire to be able to fill up that responsibility. Your life should be worthy of emulation. Boybe, if I have to mute you again, I don't know what I'm going to do, but you keep unmuting yourself, and that's not good. I muted you like about 6 times now or more. Thank you. And I know that was not deliberate. We need more people to be able to live the life that you cannot, you're going to be perfect. Nobody is perfect, but we can follow you. Very, very important. And I enjoyed today's discussion. Let me just go ahead and finish up. So they preached the gospel in the city, and one large number of disciples. Then they returned to Lystra, Iconium, Antioch, strengthening disciples and encouraging them to remain true to the faith. We must go through many hardships to enter the kingdom of God, he said. Paul and Barnabas appointed elders for them in each church, and with prayer and fasting committed them to the Lord, in whom they have put their trust. After going through Pisidia, they came to Pamphylia. And when they had preached the word in Perga, I was in almost all of these places the past few weeks. And when they had preached the word of God in Perga, they went down to Atalia. That was the last place. When we left, we went back to Atalia. And because they went back to the coast, and from Atalia, they now sailed back to Antioch, where they have been committed by the grace of God for the work that they have now completed. On arriving there, they gathered the church together and reported all that God had done through them and how he had opened a door of faith to the Gentiles. And they stayed there a long time with the disciples. And of course, you know what happened afterwards. It was in Antioch that the disciples are now called Christians. They had prophets, they had teachers, they had elders, they had all this one. So that's the kind of church that we need, that we desire, a church that recognizes the gifts of people and unleashes them out. Okay, we cannot have a funnel where everything comes down to certain people. Because the evangelists are stretched. The evangelists are stretched. The elders are stretched. So we need more people. So the call for us today is to rise up quickly so that we'll be able to shepherd, nurture, and grow the church that God has given to us. Paul sacrificed, Barnabas sacrificed. They raised up many young people. After now, from now on, you now see them getting young people. That's why now they now pull back John Mark. They have people like Eutychus, they have Secundus, you have Timothy, you have Thaddeus, you have Titus. Well, so we need young people to also rise up so that we can make our church, if not great, but great again, like we normally say. I'm going to stop at this point. I'm going to hand us over to our brother who